Curiosity clung to the dusty evening air as Evelyn Hartwell stepped off the rattling train and onto the wooden platform, her gloved fingers tightening around the handle of her small carpet-bag. She had imagined this moment so many times. Her arrival, her welcome, the man who promised a future, but the platform stretched empty, lifeless, offering no figure stepping forward in recognition. She waited, breathing shallowly as the wind curled around her skirts. A child paused to look at her, curious about the veiled stranger, but his mother pulled him along, whispering something that made the boy glance back with wide, uncertain eyes. Evelyn kept her posture straight, though her heart pressed painfully against her ribs. She could feel the beginnings of disappointment, that quiet sting that grows sharper the longer hope is forced to stand alone. As the last passengers drifted away, her gaze followed each man in the fading light. None slowed. None searched for her. The letter she had carried across miles, promises inked in careful strokes, now felt like a cruel trick placed neatly in her palm. She swallowed hard, lifting her chin, unwilling to let her first breath in this new land be one of despair. Yet the whispers began. They wandered through the air like lazy insects, impossible to ignore. "Mail order bride," someone murmured. "Left behind already?" another asked. Evelyn pretended not to hear, but the word abandoned chimed through her mind like a cracked bell. She had fought years of being overlooked, dismissed, underestimated. She had run toward a new life to escape that exact feeling, and here it was greeting her like an unwelcome friend. Across the street, Clara Boone observed her with a pointed mixture of concern and curiosity. The woman's bonnet cast a shadow over sharp eyes that missed nothing. She approached with a purposeful gait, arms folded softly but firmly, the way a woman approaches a stranger whose suffering she recognizes but isn't sure she wants to claim. "You expecting someone, dear?" Clara asked, keeping her voice gentle only out of habit. "Yes," Evelyn answered, voice thinner than she intended. "But he must have been delayed." She tried to smile, but it faltered quickly. Clara nodded, though doubt showed plainly in her expression. "Men who intend to keep their word don't stay late on such days," she said before retreating, unwilling to attach herself too closely to a story she believed would end poorly. Evelyn watched her go, feeling the weight of judgment settle heavier than her bag. A sharp whistle cut through the growing silence as the train began to roll away, metal grinding against metal. Panic flickered through her chest as she realized this truly might be the end of her plan, the collapse of her carefully held hopes. For a breath, she stood completely still, listening to the wheels carry away everything she'd counted on. The platform felt suddenly wider, colder, as though distance itself had chosen to separate her from belonging. Evelyn closed her eyes. She tried to steady her breath, to remind herself she had endured worse, but something fragile inside her trembled. When she opened them again, she felt more eyes on her, curious, pitying, amused. She turned slightly, trying to shield herself from view, her fingers curling beneath her gloves. It was then she sensed him. A presence, solid and quiet, not intruding but undeniably there. She glanced toward the shadowed side of the telegraph office and found a tall figure watching her with a steady, assessing gaze. Gideon Thorne stepped forward slowly, like a man used to moving through deep woods where each sound mattered. His coat was heavy, fur-lined, bearing the scent of pine and long winters. His face, rugged and unreadable, carried a calm that contrasted sharply with the uneasy murmurs of the crowd. He did not speak at first. Instead, he approached with deliberate gentleness, stopping just near enough to offer comfort without assuming rights. He held out his wool coat, a thick shield against the cold breeze settling over the town. Evelyn blinked, unsure whether to accept, but the warmth in his quiet eyes nudged past her hesitation. "Thank you," she whispered as he draped the coat over her shoulders, its weight grounding her trembling frame. Whispers rose again, sharper this time. "Gideon Thorne helping a stranger," someone muttered. "Man hardly speaks to anyone." But Gideon ignored them entirely. His focus remained on Evelyn, reading the exhaustion in her expression, the humiliation tightening her jaw. Sheriff Amos Cutter finally approached, boots thudding heavily against the wood. "Ma'am," he said, addressing Evelyn, "we need to know if someone is here for you." His tone was firm, the kind used for sorting out trouble from inconvenience. Evelyn opened her mouth, but no words emerged. Her shame rose like a tide. Before she could choke out an explanation, Gideon spoke. His voice was low, deep, steady enough to quiet even the wind. "She's with me." The word startled Evelyn more than the onlookers. She turned toward Gideon, unsure whether gratitude or fear should rise first. He did not meet her gaze, but his calm presence rooted her unsteady spirit. The sheriff, after a long assessing moment, gave a curt nod and stepped back. Evelyn felt the world shift, not toward safety yet, but toward possibility. She didn't know this silent man's reasons, only that her story had not ended on that platform after all. Gideon led Evelyn from the platform with the same measured calm he used when guiding an anxious horse through a storm, never pushing, only offering the steadiness of his presence. She followed wordlessly, wrapped in his coat, conscious of every passing glance. The murmurs behind them faded, replaced by the soft clatter of the wagon's wheels as Gideon helped her climb aboard. He did not touch her more than necessary, yet each movement carried a quiet respect that eased the shame clinging to her ribs. When he settled into the driver's seat, leaving a careful space between them, she felt the first hint of safety since stepping off the train. As they rolled away from town, the golden evening deepened to a burnished amber that softened the harsh edges of the world. Evelyn kept her eyes on the horizon, watching how the sky held itself together even as day slipped away. Gideon's silence was not heavy but thoughtful, giving her room to breathe. Eventually he spoke, voice gentle as a river moving between stones. He told her she owed him nothing. His words on the platform were spoken to protect her from humiliation, not to bind her life to his. She listened, absorbing the sincerity in every syllable, and for the first time since leaving her old world behind, she did not feel like a burden someone had reluctantly picked up. Gideon led the horses along a narrow trail bordered by whispering pines, their needles stirring in a slow rhythm that calmed her pulse. His cabin came into view as twilight gathered, a small structure built with care rather than wealth. Warm lamplight glowed from the window, and wood smoke drifted upward in a thin blue ribbon. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and clean earth. He offered her the bed without argument, insisting he would take the floor by the fire. She tried to protest, but he shook his head with a quiet finality that made further words unnecessary. Over the next days, Evelyn discovered that Gideon's silence was not emptiness but depth. He moved through life with an economy of motion, repairing tools, chopping wood, tending to chores with precision. Yet he always left room for her to exist beside him. When she reached for tasks, he allowed her to learn rather than overriding her efforts. She found moments of unexpected laughter slipping from her lips, soft and startled, when he demonstrated the stubbornness of his mule or quietly accepted defeat when a wooden shelf he built tilted slightly to the left. These small slices of normalcy stitched themselves into her heart, forming a quilt far warmer than fear. Still, the shadow of town gossip reached them. Riders paused too long on the trail near the cabin. Conversations hushed when Gideon walked into the general store. Some said he had taken in a woman nobody wanted. Others claimed Evelyn had cleverly secured a wealthy mountain man. She carried these whispers like stones hidden beneath her ribs, aching with the worry that her presence complicated his already solitary life. But every time she retreated into herself, Gideon noticed. Without confronting her directly, he countered her doubt with gestures that felt like quiet vows, plucking berries at dawn, leaving them in a tin pail, crafting her a pair of warm mittens from leftover hides, teaching her how to split kindling with a technique that made her feel capable rather than clumsy. These moments grew roots, and soon she understood she was not merely surviving. She was becoming. One afternoon, as frost clung to the edges of the grass, a rider approached with a speed that stirred the air into something sharp. Evelyn recognized the posture before she recognized the face. Nathaniel Briggs dismounted in a surge of arrogance, boots striking the earth like accusations. His voice carried the bitterness of a man accustomed to being obeyed. He declared she belonged to him, insisting he had the right to reclaim her. Gideon stepped from the porch, eyes steady, shoulders squared not with anger but resolve. Evelyn felt her breath catch as Nathaniel reached for her arm, an old fear threatening to break through, but Gideon's presence became a wall between her and the life she had escaped. His refusal was spoken softly, the kind of softness that left no room for challenge. Nathaniel hesitated, suddenly aware of the futility of pushing against a man who needed no rage to assert strength. With a final glare, he mounted and retreated, leaving behind the remnants of Evelyn's past like dust dissolving into the wind. After he disappeared into the trees, Evelyn felt her legs weaken. She had expected to feel terror or shame, but instead there was a lightness flooding her chest. Gideon approached her slowly, giving her the chance to pull away if she wished. She did not. Instead, she stepped toward him, her hand finding his in a trembling gesture that surprised even her. His fingers folded around hers with a care that steadied her at once. She thanked him, not only for the protection but for the dignity he had offered since the moment their lives crossed. Gideon hesitated, searching her expression as though making sure she understood the significance of her own voice. When he spoke, it was with the same gentle certainty he had shown from the start. He reminded her again that she was free to choose her path, that nothing he offered required repayment. Evelyn lifted her face toward him, courage blooming like a late-season flower. She told him she wanted to stay, not out of debt or fear, but because she had found a man who saw her worth without demanding she prove it. His breath hitched in a way she had never heard before, as though the world had shifted beneath his feet. He touched her cheek with a tenderness that felt like a promise unfolding, slow and sure. Their foreheads met in a quiet communion that carried more meaning than any vow spoken aloud. The world around them softened, the pines swaying as though acknowledging the moment when two wandering hearts found a home not built from timber but from trust. As evening settled, Gideon lit the lamp inside the cabin, its glow spreading outward like a beacon. Evelyn stepped across the threshold with him, not as a woman rescued but as a partner stepping into a future shaped by mutual respect. The night wrapped around them gently, carrying the unmistakable sense that their story was only beginning, carved with hope and anchored by the kind of love that grows in silence and proves itself through grace.